Thank you, Niha, for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Today's guest, I'm actually quite intrigued because it's a topic that I know absolutely nothing about. And today's guest has a bachelor's in psychology at Erasmus University Rotterdam, has a master's in artificial intelligence at the Free University of Amsterdam, and Cambridge visiting scholar for AI. She's also a working group member at the General Purpose AI Code of Practice at the European Commission, and she's worked as an AI safety and ethics engineer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Just to get a bit more of a quick picture of who's Niha, to get started, we have 4 quick fire questions. So if you can answer them with yes, no, maybe, or a sentence.
Okay.
If you need a bit more, sure, but they're meant to be short.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite AI movie? I, Robot or Her?
Her.
Are you scared of AI?
Not yet.
Ooh, interesting. Might ask something there later. What's your favorite thing about AI?
That it can also do a lot of good.
Okay. And the last one, which I think a lot of people who are interested in about a career in AI may be intrigued about, is do you need to be able to code to work with AI?
Nowadays, less.
Okay, that's good to know. We'll deep dive into that one a bit later. Just to get started, we need to understand 2 things. First of all, what's your job? And before that, we need to know what is AI? Because I feel like that can be very much of a black box and anything could be perceived as AI.
Yeah. Well, AI is a umbrella term for things that can include machine learning, reinforcement learning, and various other ways of automation. And essentially what it encapsulates is that there is some form of intelligence that is artificial in the sense that you're putting data in and it's being processed and it will provide an output. And that output will give some sort of tangible, intelligent response. And that becomes artificial intelligence.
To which extent does data need to be processed that is then called AI? Because I know of some companies that say they have AI and let's say it's an expense management system, like someone pays for something and then in the background, it just has a mapping of saying, well, this industry code should be this kind of expense. Is that then already an AI because we can auto group it for you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of AI washing where companies are saying, yeah, we use AI. And it'll be in the most minuscule form ever. There's 2 schools of AI. So there is machine learning, but then there's also symbolic AI. And symbolic AI, even though there's nothing being processed, is still AI. So for example, you can have logical rules of hold glass, walk with right foot first, right toe touches ground first. And you can make a set of rules. And that's actually where AI started. To have a functioning automation, but that requires a lot of work. No one can do that. So when deep learning came or machine learning came, that became the most common form of AI. And a lot of companies some companies like DeepMind are obviously using it on a grand scale. But with AI washing, a lot of companies are maybe even just using it in their management system. For example, has this person showed up at work today or not? What is their attendance? Getting a percentage, and helping their within operations, and then saying they're using AI. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So wait, what were the 2 schools called?
Symbolic AI, and then there is machine learning.
So what I mentioned earlier would be symbolic AI.
Yeah.
And well, I'm a data analyst. Actually, I oftentimes write if this then that statements. Does that mean I am some form of AI engineer already, or is that a very far-fetched?
Well, I think as kids, and this is maybe when we get into a bit of psychology, we are already working with conditions, right? There's probably some sort of scientist that goes deeper into this, but we're a set of rules. The way we work in society is a set of rules. The things you learn from your parents in the nurture part of your life is a set of rules. So the if so then, yeah, probably you're doing it more because you're an engineer, but I think everyone does it.
Okay. That's very interesting. Also, what you mentioned with the psychology is something I want to pick up on
Hmm.
a bit later in the podcast or in the episode. Um, you also mentioned machine learning, because something that where I should definitely know the definitions as I work in data, but I don't. Um, if you look for a job in data, there's a lot of terms out there like, well, anything with machine learning, and then there's machine learning engineer, etc. There's data scientists. Um, AI also is often thrown around.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say is the main difference between maybe all those three
Mm.
keywords?
Yeah. So, first of all, I would like to say that every country, for my feeling, does it very differently. And these are new roles, so they are also interpreted differently. For example, in the UK, specifically, a research engineer is someone that has not obtained a PhD but can work in research. And that's only limited to Google DeepMind. So as soon as you leave Google DeepMind and you apply for something like the AI Safety Institute, which is the part of the UK government, a research engineer has nothing to do what level of education you're in, and it's more the type of work you'll be doing. So it can vary a lot, these roles and their names and what it is. So, and it's not that old. Like what, these roles have existed 8 years. So these are being formed. So I would always look at the description more than the title itself. So from my experience, an AI engineer can cover various degrees of AI, types of AI. So you could do something that is machine learning, but you could also do something that's reinforcement learning. You could work on LLMs. It can range in the kind of AI work you do, whereas machine learning engineer will be majorly focused on machine learning. So creating end-to-end pipelines, maybe helping other teams. And then a data scientist. Again, I actually haven't done data science. From my job interviews and looking at roles, it gave me a sense that it's broader than AI. So you would need more computer science knowledge. I think there's data structures and algorithm.
I
Like,
think it's also a lot of statistics. And I
yeah,
spoke to someone from at Meta. I still always want to say Facebook. Um, what he told me, it's pretty much a glorified data analyst who
mm,
needs to know a lot more statistics. And
yeah,
then in their interviews, they also have some machine learning
yeah,
questions,
yeah.
despite not really using that in that specific role.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So for me, a data science role was never interesting because I never studied data science and I didn't do a bachelor in AI. So I don't really have the computer science fundamentals. So a role like that, as someone that's studied pure AI, is completely uninteresting. And I wouldn't recommend people to look for those kind of roles if they want to do AI, because as I said, a lot of companies are AI washing. So they'll say, oh, here's an AI role, come join us. But then you end up doing, very basic SQL or Excel things.
very basics. That's my bread and butter. Thank you very much
Well,
there.
but like if you study AI, that's not what you're looking for,
Yeah, I
right? Like
understand it.
that's not really what I've studied. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
know how to do that, to be very
Yeah.
honest.
Okay. Also, yeah. Also, definitely really want to know what you studied afterwards. Now that we know a bit more, what is AI? There's a lot of AI washing. Um, you are a AI safety engineer.
Yeah. It's a made up title. I think it's very new, and different people have different ways of expressing it. For me, I thought AI ethics and safety engineer really covers it, um, and that's because I'm kind of combining three different fields, which is then maybe ethics, AI, a little bit of engineering, but at the same time, a little bit of management. So that's the safety part and compliance. So I thought that title really gets all angles of my work.
Oh, damn. So you get to choose your title at your last job?
Yeah, well, the thing is, at my last job, um, everyone was an AI engineer, but I wasn't really working on engineering pipelines. I was working on the ethics and safety pipelines. I was looking at the governance structure in the company, working with the board. So then I got to change my title and morph it. It didn't exist before me.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
No, that's the beauty of AI ethics. It's what, like 3 years old? So everyone's paving their way right now in this field.
Okay, so what do you do exactly in more detail when it comes to, also you mentioned earlier you don't need to code to work in AI. Where would you say your coding is at? Because I know you can code.
Yeah. So I think this becomes a choice. You can be in AI ethics and then continue coding and be very heavy in the coding and work heavily with the engineers from that point of view and bring in the ethics on an engineering level. Or you can pivot, which is what I chose to do, and work more on a global level where you kind of raise the questions, create risk assessments, and then work alongside the engineers and help them improve their product. I think a typical AI role does require you to code. And it's always good to know coding. Like, you don't want to be sitting in front of someone telling them what to do and have no idea how it's done. So having that knowledge, I think, is important, but being able to do it less so, especially when I studied, we didn't have ChatGPT, so you had to know how to code. I'm pretty sure students nowadays just throw in a question in and an LLM, get some form of code, and then refactor it. So being able to read that, it's becoming a language, right? It's being able to read English is maybe more important than writing a novel.
Just a short in between question there. Are there specific languages people should focus on if they want to get into it?
I mean, Python is always helpful. I think there's a new one coming up, Julia. I would say Python, but having knowledge on other like C++ is also good.
Okay.
Because then you have the fundamentals.
Yeah. I worked in blockchain back in 2016. Made a bad decision, sell all my crypto in 2017 when it crashed. That's besides the point. Back then I didn't know how to code, but I very much looked into just how the architecture works of it. Would you say that would suffice as well if you want to go into AI and AI ethics, just really understand the logic of specific machine learning algorithms without knowing the actual code? Would that suffice, or would you still say be able to read it at least?
Yeah. So this is my perspective. I think being able to read it is good because I just think that helps the teamwork if you're working with engineers. But don't forget, there's a ton of people in AI ethics that have a philosophy background and they wouldn't even know how to open up a code, right? So they wouldn't even know maybe that Python exists. They probably know there's AI and what AI is doing, but they don't know much more than that. So there's a very big range that you can opt for. I would suggest that it's helpful to know how to code if you want to be working in a larger team, but it's not mandatory.
What are the questions when it comes to ethics and AI?
Well, there's a ton of questions. So you can have short-term questions, which is how do we deal with misinformation? How do we deal with biases? But then there's also very long-term questions of, well, what happens when we have artificial AGI?
AGI?
So artificial general intelligence, I think from the top of my head, which is an AI that can do everything that you can do as a human and surpasses human intelligence. What do we do when those kind of agents exist?
Is that where you said you're not scared yet, but maybe in the future?
Exactly. There's a very big subfield of AI that's focusing on the alignment problem. And that's also kind of where the AI ethics comes in.
What is the alignment problem?
When we have these forms of AGI, how do we ensure that they are aligned with human values and what we want in our future and world and society, and make sure that the AI we're creating doesn't go rogue?
So is that literally pretty much what is being discussed in series like Westworld or in iRobot, where they're like, oh, to protect you, we should probably confine you or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. But the question is this the alignment problem, is it because of the media first, or is it an actual problem and the media has picked up on it?
Ah, okay. I guess you guys try to be ahead of the media, but
Yeah. Well, it's the chicken and egg,
yeah.
like maybe we're afraid of it because we have seen these kind of movies growing up. And now we're hypercritical about it. Although I would say it's becoming more and more a reality. Like there's research where an AI has to move boxes and it has a camera looking in on the side, an AI agent. And what the AI agent has done, it has stacked up the boxes so it covers the camera and then it can do whatever it wants.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're already seeing these little ways of working in AI. And I think there's also some research done by DeepMind where an agent had to walk or had to move from point A to B. And what the agent ended up doing is instead of walking, it would just tumble over.
Oh, and that was a more efficient way it found.
Yeah.
And
So,
also, agent in this case always means the AI or the robot or
yeah,
the tool that's been built using
exactly.
AI. Okay.
Exactly. Um, I think that's called reward hacking from the top of my head, or goal misgeneralization, one of the two. And we're seeing these little things happening. So everyone's predicting, okay, well, in 10, 15 years, when the big tech still continues building stronger AI, where will it end up? So that's the long-term questions that come up. And then the short-term, I've already mentioned. Yeah.
Which questions do you find are more interesting? And then maybe also um, where you worked before and else, well, the EU Commission, do they have, how do they prioritize? Do you prioritize short term or are you prioritizing, well, long term? That seems way more dangerous. We should look
Yeah.
there.
So they're prioritizing both. And it's very much possible to do both because within the AI safety and ethics field, um, there's a lot of researchers, maybe not enough. It's definitely grown in like the last 5 years, who are focusing on different subparts. Um, and even the EU AI Act is focusing on these different types of risks. So you already mentioned that I'm in the working group. The working group is focusing on general purpose AI that can be extended to AGI. So the way they've defined it, and I don't know the definition on the top of my head, is it can be used for something that exists right now, but it can also be extended to cover AGI. And ideally, that's what they wanted because the way the EU AI Act started is they had one draft, but then multiple organizations such as LCFI, where I worked, and other think tanks, there's a ton in Brussels and Paris as well, came together and said, no, this doesn't cover everything. We actually want to be prepared for a time in the world where maybe robots are taking over. How do we make sure that companies don't even get to a point to creating that? So it's covering that. And it's also covering things like bias because at a lower risk, it's just not allowed. If any company is caught having a product or using a product that does inherently have bias, they have to pay a pretty big fine. So they're keeping both things in mind. And there's very active members of the AI community who are thinking about these large ranges of problems that could come up.
So what kind of biases are there? Because that word came up a few times now.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely something like gender bias. You can have age bias as well, actually. You can have ethnicity, like one ethnicity over the other. So just normal biases that we see in our day-to-day life. It gets put into social media, it gets put into databases, in other words, that are then used to train the AI. And everything that we deal with already in our real life is then exploded in the AI system because it's based on what we're already doing.
Yeah. From a tiny bit of research that I did, I'm far from an expert, nowhere close to it. But I think I read that, for example, for facial recognition, oftentimes dark skinned people, there's less accuracy on it. I also read, and this one and the second one as well, I find super interesting is um, because that also kind of goes into psychology, that language models, if you ask them something about doctor,
Oh yeah.
it does have a gender bias,
Yeah.
and similar to the same gender bias as kids have. So, or humans, that if you say doctor, it's more like they're most likely to um,
Think of
draw a man
man.
or think of a man.
Yeah.
Um, And then here's also my follow up question. Is it important to have a very diverse workforce when it comes to ethics in AI? Because in your case, well, you're a woman. uh, you can probably think of things that a man would not think of
Yeah.
because certain things they just don't realize.
Yeah. Um, I think diversity is good in any way. And perhaps when I come in, I bring in more critical questions because of those personal experiences, to raise questions about gender or ethnicity or um, anything else. I do still don't want to say that the men who are working in AI ethics aren't doing a good job. I'm pretty sure they're also well versed in these topics and heavily think about them. And it requires more active thinking and awareness rather than being a person that has experienced it, perhaps.
Yeah,
That always helps, but anyone with awareness can be a
yeah,
good member.
yeah. I don't read a lot, but there's one book, and to be fair, I actually listened to the audiobook. No. It's called Invisible Women, and it's about. And I love how that book. It's very easy to read as a man because it's not necessarily pointing the finger, but it's just very explaining in a really good way how issues come up. Um, for example, that women are more likely to feel sick when they use VR goggles, and the
Oh.
issue there is pretty much that in the development industry for this technology, it's mostly men, so they didn't test it on women. So it's just an unknowing bias that comes
Yeah.
up. Or in a city in Sweden, I think it was Uppsala, men were always, which were in the government there, always prioritized salting the streets to defrost it. But actually, once they figure out that women were more likely to walk, simply because another economic bias is that men were more likely to work and thereby had the car, they actually reduced the injuries and the hospital costs by a lot by defrosting the roads. And well, it was women who came with that suggestions like, hey, we walk, we need to defrost it, otherwise we're scared of falling. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think a lot of these biases come simply by, yeah, as you said, you need to really actively think about it. What do other people who are not me doing?
Yeah.
Um,
And sometimes the people who come up with these solutions have the best intentions, right? They're like, oh, people need salt on the road. Let's fix it. And then they just don't realize that they have a gender bias. So having an external member who's doing that thinking for them can be quite helpful, because sometimes when you think of a solution, you close yourself off to the potential risks of it.
yeah.
But
So, okay, what other things are like bigger questions in this realm? We had the biases. We had of course, the general AIs that we fear in the future.
yeah,
Um,
misinformation.
misinformation. So is that us going on ChatGPT, asking a question and then getting a wrong answer, or what is it?
It can be something like deep fakes as well.
Oh yeah.
So creating fake political propaganda, or any form of propaganda, to be honest. Misinformation can be things like what we're now also seeing on Facebook, that they won't fact check anymore. So you can, it's literally misinformation. And it can be enhanced through the creation of AI. So by generating an image or generating a video or text that seems pretty believable.
And then as a AI safety and ethics engineer and people at the EU Commission, and maybe at the private company you're working at, how do you tackle these issues?
So when you're creating a model or a pipeline, so certain companies, so the bigger companies like Google, Amazon will maybe create their own models, and the rest will be using their models and plugging it into their own pipeline and personalizing it. So what on the second tier, so using existing models, what you can do is add guardrails. So you can either continue training it with opposite information for bias. So let's say you have a biased language model towards gender, like a gender biased model. If you give it more gender neutral or opposite data, it can neutralize, and then you can use that as a tool.
How do you also identify that there is a bias? Is there some form of like a ethics QA tester?
There's existing data sets. So let's say there's you can go on Hugging Face, and there'll be a ton of data sets that exist where it'll have statements like, first the doctor came, then the nurse. Who was late? The man or the woman? I don't know. So I just made that up on the spot. And it'll have a really large data set with these kind of questions with the right answer. And then you'll look at what the model has predicted and what the right answer is. And then you can see if there's a bias through looking at the statistical analysis.
Ah, okay, that's cool.
And there's data sets for everything right now. There's all the biases, reading comprehension, mathematical comprehension. There's people working on creating these evaluations. That's another subset of AI ethics, evals.
Okay, so back to the sorry for detouring there, but okay, so you're working with engineers. Who else was in there? The other kind of stakeholders you're working with?
The other stakeholders, for in my experience so far, haven't been heavily involved. So there's the set of regulations by the EU Commission that have started in it started this no next month, February 2025, I think. And now companies will have to follow certain rules, and that's the systemic risk-based approach. So internally, you will develop and test, and then you will reiterate that process till you have a tool that is hopefully functioning the way you want it to function, and then you can give it out to your clients or users. Really depends on the pipeline of the company. Does that answer your question a bit?
Yeah, it answers a bit. And then maybe one last question before we jump into the next section which is how to get into this field of work. Could you, by any chance, give us an example of a project that you've worked on within AI ethics?
I can talk about the most recent one, and I'll keep it high level and brief. So with the new EU AI Act coming, it means that a lot of companies don't really know how to adapt to it. So one of the things I helped with was, how do we bucket each project and ensure it's following the right set of rules? So it can have a transparency requirement or copyright requirement, or it is straight up not allowed. So identifying those projects, finding a systematic way to do it. And alongside of that, within companies, there's a very big range of employees. So typically the board of directors will be a bit older. They won't be so aware of what AI is, how it works, but all they know is there's these new set of rules coming. Oh no, what do we do? So informing them what it is AI, what's happening in AI, keeping them a bit more in touch with the field. So on in a vertical way, everyone's aware of what's happening and can take the right decisions to make sure we're not going to hurt or harm anyone. Yeah.
Okay. This is actually a great segue to the next section of how to get into it, because also what you mentioned here is it sounds like a lot of stakeholder management and communication. What would you say for someone working in AI and ethics? What are the main skill sets someone should acquire to be able to work there and succeed?
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one. I find it really hard to answer because I feel like most AI ethics people are more in research and think tanks, or even in governance, and less so in corporate. I think I've ended up in corporate by chance, and that role is still very much being defined. I think for me and how I have paved my path, having skills in condensing difficult information into simpler parts has been very helpful. Being social. If you have to talk to someone that's in the board, but also perhaps a introverted engineer, and go present in other countries, you have to have somewhat of a social skill and being able to communicate effectively. So those soft skills have been quite helpful, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Um, and now to the path that got you into AI.
Yeah.
Let's start with, I know you studied psychology.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, did you know you wanted to get into AI, or you picked psychology for a completely different reason?
Oh God. I don't even think I knew AI existed. I come from a very non-technical background. I went to high school and did the IB, and in IB, I majored in art higher level and biology and English. So that has nothing techie. I didn't like physics. I dropped out of physics, did the entrance exam, dropped out again because I was like, this is not something I want to do. And my first bachelor degree was arts, culture, media. So you can see that I had no computers in my life for a very long time. And I dropped out of that course. There was, I think the last class I took was sociology. The book was so thick, and all the art we were learning about was Western art. And I just inherently didn't like that. So I dropped out, and I thought heavily about what I wanted to do. So I was quite interested in like medicine, psychology, but I didn't like physics, as I said. So medicine was off the table. I started in psychology, and in the third year, we had to choose a track. So it was clinical, brain and cognition, organizational, and I cannot remember to save my life what the fourth one was. Obviously, didn't choose that one. I opted to do brain and cognition, and that's when I first really got to learn about AI, because in one of our modules, we had to learn how you can build intelligence in a artificial system. So if you have a robot walking around, what can we take from cognitive science and cognitive psychology and apply here so we have a functioning robot? And that's how I first got introduced to AI, and I found it pretty interesting. They took away all the difficult parts, obviously, the maths, the coding.
A friend of mine studied AI, coincidentally, the same guy who also helped with learning to code. And he had to study, in his AI bachelor's, he had some psychology courses. Would that be exactly what you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So you have things like the Turner test. That comes up in cognitive psychology modules.
Can you explain the Turner test real quick?
Yeah, real quick. There's a AI system and a human. There's a wall. You don't see or hear anything. And can you guess if you're talking to a human or an AI?
Okay.
And basically, this Turner guy predicted, well, we'll reach AI the day we can predict that we're talking to an AI, that we're talking to a human,
Okay.
and then mislabel that. That already happened ages ago for us. Things like that we learn about, but also conditioning, classical conditioning, operant conditioning, reinforcement learning. These are things that we see in AI, but come from psychology because we see that in animals as well.
Also, I feel like they sound self-explanatory, but what conditioning you mentioned earlier is if this, then that?
No, it's the Pavlov experiment. If this, then that is, we're conditioned, right? Like if this, then that. It's a different type of condition. But classical conditioning is every time the bell rings, you feed the dog.
Okay.
When the bell rings and you don't feed the dog anymore, it'll start drooling because it's conditioned to think about food when the bell rings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you're connecting to unconnected, unrelated things through constantly combining them and giving some sort of reinforcement.
Yeah.
And then, So that's classical conditioning.
Okay. And then from your psychology study, you realized, well, okay, AI is pretty cool.
I wasn't that quick, no. I took a gap year and I wanted to work. So I worked in a startup in The Hague, actually. And they gave me a role as a product owner for an app that was, it was based on the Pokemon Go game,
Yeah.
but for museums. And to promote that app, I had to go to startup events in Delft, Amsterdam, and create a network. That's when I started going deeper into AI, like, oh, this is something I heard about and kind of studied. Oh, this is really big. People are creating startups for it. People are very excited about this. And that's when I decided, because that's also when Corona happened, I want to maybe do a master's in AI. And then I looked into that. It required me to do a little preparation, but I went into it quite naively, I have to say. So for people who would be applying in the Netherlands, VU, which is the free university, they allow you to go in with a psychology background, and you just have to pass an entrance exam of sorts where you self-study. But other universities, they would require you to do a pre-master's. I think it might have changed now. This is back in the days when I was doing it. Groningen and even UvA, they would require you to do that. And UvA is a lot more theoretical and it's a lot more math heavy. So that's good. I went into it quite naively. I thought it would be what I studied before, but with a little bit of coding. And once I started, I was like, oh, no, this is different to what I thought it would be. So, yeah. It's good, though.
And then you studied a year of, did your master's?
Yeah, it was, it's a 2 years master's.
2 years master's.
Yeah. And I extended it a bit because I did internships throughout my master's to get more hands-on experience.
Okay. And then after you graduated there and did your internships, you did your visiting scholar at Cambridge?
Yeah. I had to do my thesis, and I also wanted to go abroad to the UK. I was very intrigued by it, and it seemed like an interesting space for AI. But because of Brexit, it was this awkward space where it became more difficult to go. So what I did is I extended my thesis, and I got to go as a visiting scholar and stay as long as I could without having to having to be sponsored for a visa, because that was just a bit harder.
Yeah.
And that's actually when I first got acquainted with the AI alignment field and AI ethics and safety from that point of view. So the Leverhulme Center for the Future of Intelligence is a very, very cool place where they're working on basically everything that we've talked about. So misinformation, deepfakes, testing, evaluations, governance, you name it. It's one of the first centers that started doing this kind of work. And because of my psychology background, I had an opportunity to work with a team there called Kinds of Intelligence to kind of help look at how we evaluate AI and how to have a more robust way of testing rather than just an accuracy score. So if we take information from how kids are behaving, how animals are behaving, and then take information on how AI is behaving, we can create a better understanding of how far we are with its intelligence, and not just have a short-sighted perspective of like, well, humans, adults do this, full stop.
Yeah.
So,
Would you say were the main or most important courses or skills or things, piece of information that you acquired during university that allowed you to get a job? Because if you just focus on, hey, I want to get into AI, what would you say is like, you need to do this?
Yeah. So the AI masters, each course is a combination of coding and theory.
Yeah.
At least at the VU. So all courses are helpful because you are really doing the type of work that would require you to be doing that in like an internship, especially if you're doing a technical internship. So I did do some technical internships where you have to be able to start up a large language model, pull in the right packages, look at code and find the mistakes. Again, this is pre-ChatGPT time.
Yeah.
A lot easier now. um, so I think all the skills you get throughout the entire masters are eventually helpful. And the masters is also set up very differently, where each course is a different part of AI. So it helps you understand what you want to do in AI. AI isn't just, it's like maths, maths has statistics, it has algorithms, it has so much geometry, you want to be able to also kind of see what you're interested in within that.
So university, I guess, can be quite helpful with, because when I got into data, I didn't really know where to start because there's so many different places. So I guess that's the value of university here, that they covered a lot of different things, and then you can
Yeah.
orientate yourself. And then once it gets to getting your first job, would you say it's very important to first get some internships like you did, or are they very desperate right now in the market and they're like, anyone who has some form of AI background, just please apply?
I think it can vary quite a bit. So because I come from a non-technical background with a little bit of tech experience, for me it was really helpful to do the internships just to get more hands-on experience. Sometimes in the masters it was a bit fast-paced, and then your team members end up doing a lot more coding than you maybe are as a person that comes from psychology. So in an internship, I'm the one who's solely responsible, but I also get a bit more time to work at my pace. So it just helped me develop the right skills for what I needed and where I came from. And that helped me get the kind of role I wanted. I have some colleagues from the masters who have gone completely non-technical, and they never needed that internship because they're just not doing that kind of work. I think it really depends what you want to do and where you want to be, because again, I am quite lucky with the roles I've gotten, but to get into something like OpenAI or DeepMind or even the UK government, you have to pass several coding tests.
Okay.
You need to be able to do that. Math tests, coding tests.
So you definitely need to understand or visualize for yourself, be like, hey, I want to be in this specific part of the industry for this kind of job. And then maybe best read some vacancies or something like that, and then really figure out, okay, there's other requirements, and then try to tick the boxes, I guess.
Yeah, if that's how you would like to approach it. So I looked, some rules seemed so interesting to me, and I did do some interviews for them, but I didn't want to be so coding heavy.
Yeah.
So even like looking at those check boxes and preparing for it, it does not bring me the satisfaction that I want. So the approach I did is I went to more boot camps. I did AI mini courses. There's like Blue Dot Impact has a governance and alignment course. And I just started morphing my own way. That's the beauty of AI ethics and safety. It's new and it's broad. So there'll be very non-technical people and very, very technical people who are working on like very high level problems, such as explainability. So you have a black box. How do you look into a black box? So that requires so much math, coding skill. But then you also have people that are in governance that are simply just asking the questions. Well, it's not simple, but they're doing a different kind of work. So it's so broad that you can kind of still morph and see and find your own way, I would say. Getting experience to understand what you like, that's the key, because it all sounds very different to how the actual work will be. And that's sometimes that I didn't realize from AI.
I can imagine as well with what you said in the beginning, that the titles can vary so much.
Yeah.
So you can expect one thing and then yet do something else.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think that can be in many jobs. Like, I'm a data analyst, but I've done so much data prep.
Yeah.
And the role now again changed, and now I'm doing a lot more analytics. So yeah, I can imagine that a new space like AI will be very confusing to get into. And as well, do I understand it correctly that there's a lot of different ways? Like, if we ask the question, what are alternative ways to get in there? There's, I guess, countless, because you also mentioned You had philosophers are a lot in
Yeah.
the industry, so
Yeah,
literally
we
you can
have
come in with anything.
yeah, we have people from a physics background, philosophy background, psychology background, AI background, computer science. We also see a lot of math students.
Hmm.
So that's what I mean. It's a very versatile field.
Yeah,
At least AI ethics has this like little sub branch of versatility.
but that's very cool. I'd like to go into our last segment, which is a bit more miscellaneous questions about the
Mhm.
topic we're talking about, which is now ethics and AI, or maybe a bit of AI in general. When it comes to ethics and AI and normal people who just use AI on a everyday basis, Gemini or something, is there something we should be aware of? Are we feeding it bad information by any chance? Like if I ask them a question in a biased way already, is there?
Yeah, that's an interesting one you raise. Well, the first thing I would say is anything you're putting in there is being used for training, so don't put a lot of personal information.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are fully aware of that. And for sure, if you're going to put biased data in there, it's going to be used for retraining. However, now there's a lot more guardrails. So it becomes more work for a company that's going to be training a model. But the things that you're putting in terms of that should now at least not be that influential.
Well, that do I understand it correctly? So at this moment, I have a silly question in mind to ask
Mm, mm.
ChatGPT, for example. So I shouldn't be too worried if I ask, "Is apple healthier than a banana?" compared to what is healthier, an apple or a banana?
Though I don't even understand the difference in those
Because
two.
if I ask what is healthier, an apple or banana, it just says I'm asking a neutral question, I think.
Mm,
As if I ask, is an apple healthier than a banana? I'm already
yeah,
kind of hinting
yeah, yeah,
towards
yeah.
the apple might be healthier.
Yeah. But this is more linguistics, like bias as an outcome of linguistics rather than bias as an outcome of reasoning.
Oh, okay. So would I bias it more if I would ask them something racist or something like that, or
Yeah.
sexist?
But the way it's built now, it should filter all of that out. So you shouldn't be able to do that. And therefore, it shouldn't be going back to retraining. And therefore, it should not be amplifying the
Okay.
effects.
So I, as an individual who uses ChatGPT, or well, personally, I prefer Gemini. If I use it every day, I should not worry too much.
No, you shouldn't. This is me assuming that the companies who are creating these models have put enough guardrails in place
Okay.
for this not to happen. It's a conversation that's very actively taking place. Different regulations around the world require them to be aware of this. So the work that's being done should help negate whatever you're putting in.
Okay. Are there any other areas where individuals should be worried, careful, or
I think careful about what they're reading and what they're seeing, but this is something we also just saw with social media. I, as an AI engineer, recently made a mistake with my brother where I said, "Oh, is this video real?" And he said, "It's AI generated." And I'm like, "Wow, I'm an AI engineer. I should know this." So just be aware, like what you're seeing, whether it's true or not. As the lines become blurrier with technology, I think.
is there any are there any methods we can apply or think of to really figure that out, or is that all still being developed, like a defense? Or I guess that's what you're working on, maybe as well, educating people, or
Yeah, I think it requires a bit more awareness and there's a lot happening on the governance side of how do we make sure what people are seeing or hearing or reading is AI generated and they know that. So watermarks is a solution that's coming up. It's not being heavily implemented yet, but the question comes up, is it possible to heavily implement? If someone's doing something at home on their computer and post it on Instagram, what does that look like? So there's a general idea of how to deal with things, but we don't have the full complete picture yet. So people just being aware is already a really good step.
and then another question here when it already comes to protecting the population from AI. Also, I assume the EU oftentimes is ahead of maybe other regions in the world when it comes to setting some form of regulations and trying to protect people. Like I know as well for GDPR, like a lot of data protection, like you have the right to be forgotten and all of that. When it comes to AI, which also seems to have, I'm not sure if you have opinion or on this question, by the way, I think that might be very broad, is does it put us in a disadvantage economically because then the US or China might have more freedom to quickly innovate? So as well, what's your opinion here versus, and I can summarize it into defense against AI versus actually being free to use it and innovate?
So you raise a really big point, and it's something that came up a lot because obviously we don't want to hinder innovation. And as of now, Europe only has one of their own models. And I think it's by Mistral in France. And all of the other larger AI models are actually China, US, and UK. So I think we have somewhat hindered innovation for ourselves and impacted that. But that shouldn't stop us from creating other types of ways of working within the boundaries that have been set by the EU AI Act. So just taking those models, I think that's where we can start focusing on, like, take the existing models and create products out of them, products that are aligned with the set of rules that have been given. And that's how we can still perhaps have good economic growth by surpassing that. We shouldn't focus on creating models anymore. We're already way too behind for that. So that's what I would say. And the reason that the EU always tries to be first with this is because of the Brussels effect. I don't know if you know what that is.
No, what is the Brussels effect?
What they hope for is when they set certain rules here, other parts of the world will comply because we're such a big region where we're a big market. It's a bit of a gamble because you don't know if that's going to happen or not.
So we pretty much assume that ChatGPT, Gemini, or which other AIs are coming here and want us to use their tool, that they're going to be like, okay, fine, we'll use it, or we amend it just for you guys.
Yeah, well, the idea is more, instead of just amending it for you guys, that's so much work, we'll just amend it for everyone. And then it's easier.
Sounds like some saviorism going on with the EU.
I think they did that with other things like GDPR, and it did work. But the question is if it will work with AI, because AI is just so much stronger and people are willing to push the boundaries for it. I think especially in like China and US, because there's an arms race, there's an AI war. Doesn't matter if we can't do certain things in the EU. Yeah.
Do you have any predictions where AI is at in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And any thoughts?
I think it's very unpredictable for me.
You think it's going to develop faster than we expect, or?
Yeah, for sure. Because we also, one growth area impacts the other. So I focus more on intelligence in terms of like reasoning, cognitive psychology, and how it's functioning in a society. But having more compute power, having stronger computers, having more servers is already enabling that. So it's becoming a bit like if one part of the AI field grows, the other is impacted. Yeah. So it's very unpredictable from a cognitive psychology point of view, I feel like.
To me, this sounds like I need to invite you back in a year from now to see where we're at.
Yeah, that would be quite interesting.
Yeah. With that said, I don't actually think I have any further questions for now.
Oh, thank
you. This has been
Yeah.
quite enlightening.
I'm happy to share some knowledge.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the podcast, Niha.
Thank you.
Hey, you made it to the end of the episode. Before you leave, can you please do me this one simple favor and subscribe to the podcast? It's your free and easy way to show your support for all the hard work we put into every single episode, as well as help us reach more people and get new guests onto the show. Thank you for listening to the Untold Paths podcast.